Hello everyone, Niklsun here, and welcome to Coming Soon Movie News with Niklsun. I'm your host, and on this show, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we'll be going over all of the day's movie news, as well as going over what it means for the production in general, such as casting decisions, trailer announcements, director announcements, things like that. So, without any further ado, let's get started with today's Hot Topics. Late Monday night, a brand new trailer for the upcoming Dwayne Johnson-fronted disaster flick San Andreas was released, and this trailer now gives us the best idea of what we're going to get. It's basically an extended version of the trailer that we already got. There's a few new shots in it, but it's basically just extended versions of the sequences we saw in the trailer, which I like that studios are doing that. Maybe not necessarily showcasing all the money shots in the trailer, but taking one or two and giving us a glimpse of those in the teaser trailer, and then showing us a little bit more of them in the theatrical trailer without really showing us any more of the movie. Because at the end of the day, if a teaser trailer has worked and there's a lot of people talking about it, those glimpses that you gave people already were the things that's all you needed to give them. You didn't need to give them any more. Maybe you could expand upon those ideas in the next trailer, but you don't need to give every single frame of footage like what Sony did with The Amazing Spider-Man. Or The Amazing Spider-Man 2, I should say. So, seeing a trailer like this, with the exception of the ending shot, we've seen the majority of all this stuff just from slightly different angles or maybe longer shots or anything like that, but I am 100% on board with this movie. Now, when it was first announced, there was a little bit of skepticism, only because, and it had nothing to do with The Rock, it was the director. It was Brad Peyton. Now, Brad Peyton has, his two most notable credits to date for directing were, what was it, Cats and Dogs 2, The Hunt for Kitty Galore, or something along those lines, and then Journey to the Mysterious Island. So, while I enjoyed Mysterious to or Journey to the Mysterious Island, it wasn't a great film, but it had its moments. Definitely a family film. And then I didn't even see Cats and Dogs 2, so I can't comment on that. Although, no, I'm not even going to comment on that. But this has been a project that I've been looking forward to because I love disaster films, especially when they're done right. The scope and scale, the fact that it's something that can completely remove you from the current reality that you're in, yet simultaneously still give you ideas about concepts that could happen in our world. I mean, like, this to me is one of the best types of movies to go and see on the big screen. These are the types of movies that are made for the big screen. The amount of scope and spectacle that we're going to be seeing, the level of destruction. I mean, I know that's not something to really be excited about or to be entertained by. Well, I mean, everybody gets entertained by that because it's not real. We like to see train wrecks. You know, that's the general standing. I mean, or a car accident or anything like that. Like, people are drawn to watch those events, yet they're horrific. You can never get past the point that it's horrific. Somebody is either severely injured or dying. In this case, thousands and thousands of people are dying. But when it's not real, we're able to sit back and enjoy it. And it's a very weird part of our psyche. Like, it really goes to explore what people are like. I know I'm getting completely off basis here, but this is one of the reasons why movies like this work. It's because people desperately want to see these events. But they want to see them in a safe environment. They want to know that what I'm seeing is horrific, but nobody is being affected by it. Now, these also mirror real-world events that happen around the world, such as, what happened in Haiti, what happened in Chile, what happened in Japan, and countless other areas around the world that suffer from these horrific events, whether they be tsunamis, whether they be hurricanes, whether they be, even tornadoes, anything like that. Natural disasters are not something that people are willing to put themselves in danger of interacting with, except people who live in Florida. But these are all inherently things that people want to see. Like, and again, I got to be careful how I word this, because not that I'm saying that people flock out to watch these natural disasters happen and ruin people's lives, destroy their homes, their livelihoods, potentially even their lives themselves. No, it's we're entertained by the notion that these are things that do happen in the real world, but we are not affected by them in this instance. Even if you're in an area like in Tennessee or in Louisiana or Florida or any these areas that are always being hit by whether or not it's hurricanes or tornadoes or anything of that sort. I mean, even those people like to go out and see these movies because it's something that, while it's relatable to them, they know that in certain circumstances they've been affected by things like this, they still want to go and see them. It's a proven fact. Look at the box office. Look at the box office. People like to go and see these types of movies. When they're done right, they're even more entertaining. When they're done wrong, you get movies like 2012, which, while it was still a visual spectacle, there was an absurd amount of stupidity in that movie. Like the whole limo chase sequence, that did not need to be a limo chase scene. Just everything. Like the visual spectacle of it was cool, but there was so much stupidity in the film. This movie looks like it's going to combine what 2012 offered with, kind of the sensibilities of something along the lines of The Day After Tomorrow, because I felt The Day After Tomorrow was one of the more successful disaster flicks. Just because, while yes, it was still absurd, there wasn't anywhere near as much stupidity in that movie. There were, yes, okay, conceptual-wise, yes, there was. But in terms of how people actually acted and reacted in the movie, there was very minimal compared to a movie like 2012. So this film, while I'm a little skeptical because I do believe that we are being misled about the tone, Brad Payton has not done anything outside of family fare, or at least with that sort of feel to it. And I do feel that this movie is going to be a little bit more, not necessarily lighthearted, but there are going to be more moments of levity in the film. It is dire circumstances that they are in the movie, absolutely. But I still feel like we are going to get a more fun experience from this film. It's not going to be as depressing and as, serious as we're being led to believe. I mean, just point in case, look at the end sequence in the trailer. I mean, they are essentially surfing a giant tidal wave with boats trying to get over the top of it before it crests. So, I mean, just taking the absurd notion of these sequences, but keeping it realistic or keeping it serious in tone, I don't think it works for the movie's benefit. So I do think they need to kind of poke fun at themselves a little bit while still understanding that these are real world events that do affect real people. And you need to ride that line. And so I think this movie does have a shot at doing it because so far, I mean, you got The Rock. The Rock is a franchise saver. So that being said, when he's in his own films, they're not as successful as he'd like them to be. Point in case was Hercules last year. But this, I think, is going to appeal to a broader sense of people or a broader audience. So this, to me, I'm looking forward to it. Again, that end shot. I mean, that was the big money shot in this trailer. Everything else we'd kind of seen before. We got an extended sequence of the helicopter rescue at the beginning. But everything else essentially was stuff we'd already seen. Now, I did not know that Ioan Gruffudd was in the movie, and I'm actually a big fan of his. Even back to King Arthur that he did with Clive Owen, where he played Lancelot. As bad as the movies were, I still do find a soft spot in my heart for the Fantastic Four movies, even though they were terrible. They were bad adaptations of those comic books, 100%. But there was still some entertaining aspects to it. He was a bad Reed Richards, I will give him that. But he's the type of person, he has charisma, where I like seeing him on screen. And so I'm excited to see him in this movie. And Colton Haynes apparently is in this movie, who plays Roy Harper on Arrow. So any of you fans of Arrow out there, he apparently is going to be in this film, though we have not seen him yet. So I'm on board with this. This looks like it's going to be just plain fun. So I'm definitely on board with it. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, whether or not you're excited for it or if you're dreading it or anything like that. Let me know in the comment section. The movie's going to be opening up on May 29th of this year. So if we do get more information about this topic, I will definitely update you guys on here. There's a new rumor going around out there that apparently Tron 3 is going to be filming in October of this year in Vancouver. Now, we've been hearing rumors about Tron 3 for a while, and it didn't necessarily, there was a likelihood that it would sometimes, or most likely happen eventually, but there was also a bit of a hesitance on Disney's part because obviously their focus right now is on Marvel and on Star Wars, with also their animation and Pixar divisions. And then the only other franchise that we've seen them try to continue on is the Pirates of the Caribbean. So with Tron Legacy coming out in 2010, which was a gorgeous looking film, it just lacked pretty much everything else. There was no real character development. Even Jeff Bridges was subdued. He didn't even really fit into the film anymore. the action scenes were a little bit bland, but it was very nice to look at. And I feel that while you have the basis set up for this beautiful world, have new writers come in and set up a really cool story that takes place within this visual, just masterpiece, if you will. I mean, it's beautiful to look at. The design aspect of it, everything about it looked gorgeous, but it needed more story, it needed more structure, more character development, more heart. And while I feel that Disney should press forward with the Tron 3, the rumors that are coming out right now, I'm not exactly getting excited about it. And the reason being is that there was a website called, I believe it was vancitybuzz.com. They're a Vancouver local news outlet, and their sources apparently... Now, the reason that this is coming out, and the reason I'm talking about it, and it's not just a rumor thrown by some random site, is because Vancity Buzz is not a clickbait site. They are not out for traffic. They are just reporting on news that's happening in the local Vancouver area. So they had also reported that what was it that was going to be shooting in this? Star Trek 3 was going to be shooting in June or July is when they were going to be starting, and they're going to be filming out in Vancouver. And then Tron 3 was going to be starting October 5th. But they're not a clickbait site, so they're not the type of site to put up information just to get people to go to them. Then Badass Digest comes in and almost validates a lot of their points. Their own sources had said, yes, actually this is happening. And in fact, Joseph Kosinski, who wrote and directed the sequel, will be returning to write and direct the third one. Now, again, this has not been confirmed by Disney. These are coming from unknown sources from both Badass Digest and from Vancity Buzz. Now, as much as I like to hate on Devin Faraci, the dude has his sources, all right? Anytime he comes out with information about an upcoming film, his opinion aside, the information itself is, generally speaking, got some legitimacy to it. So you can't exactly throw this out. You need to look at it and say, okay, there might actually be something here. And he actually vetted his own sources, and they said, actually, yes, this is, in fact, happening. Apparently, according to the report, Garrett Hedlund, who was the son, Sam Flynn, I believe his name was, the son of Jeff Bridges' character, Kevin Flynn, in the sequel, is the only one who's set to return to star, which that's not surprising because he most likely signed at least a 3-picture deal. The surprising thing is that there's no mention of Olivia Wilde, where if you've seen Legacy, you know that she is now a fairly integral part of the story that he is most likely wanting to continue to tell. So I'm assuming that she's going to come back. I don't see why Garrett Hedlund would sign a multi-picture deal and Olivia Wilde would not, especially when she first did this movie, when she signed on to do it. She was not the name that she is now. So it all depends on whether or not she actually comes back because, like I said, I'm not going to really spoil anything, but she is fairly integral to the plot moving forward. And where they would actually go is still an unknown. The storyline of Tron Legacy was very similar to what the storyline of Tron was, where it was essentially the program inside the grid was trying to get out into the real world and instill some sort of, virus or anything like that. So where they could go with, I can't even remember. It was Cillian Murphy. Cillian Murphy was a cameo role in Tron Legacy as the son of the creator, or not the creator, the guy who ran the company in Tron, the original movie. And he was actually played the villain in the grid as well. They were two completely different characters, but that was the beauty of Tron, was that it juxtaposed characters in the real world with characters in the grid. So, Bruce Boxleitner played both Tron and he played, I'm completely forgetting his name. He was Kevin Flynn's best friend. He was kind of the father figure to Sam Flynn in the sequel. Bruce Boxleitner's character, I can't exactly remember his name, but this film could work with a compelling story. You get somebody else, like I've been saying for a while, you give and this is completely aside from Tron 3, this is not about Tron 3, you give the Wachowskis a script written by somebody else, a good script, and you're going to get a really cool movie out of that. If they are not allowed to write the script, they're not going to confuse it with all of their crazy weirdness, which a lot of times I do actually like. But a lot of times it goes way too far and goes way too convoluted. And they think, this will be funny, when it's really not. Like a lot of the dialogue in Jupiter Ascending. While I hated the dialogue, I thought that movie was a wild, fun ride. But it's one of those movies where you can enjoy the action sequences but laugh at everything else when it's not intending to be laughed at. So I enjoyed it on that level. But if you give somebody like Joseph Kosinski has proven that he is a very talented visual director, his handling of actors could have also been a lack of script. You give him a good script written by somebody else, we might actually see a really decent Tron 3. Because Disney's plan right now is most likely to get a trilogy box set. They're going to try to get this movie out because the first movie cost, reportedly, and I don't believe this for a second, reportedly was $170 million to make it. I'm pretty sure it was a lot higher than that. On top of that, their marketing campaign for the movie was massive. So I'm going to say it was at least $65 million. So right there, the movie cost about $235 million. Let's just bump it up to $250 because their production budget was probably a lot higher than that. So let's say it was $250. Well, the movie made about $400 million worldwide, which it didn't domestically make back its budget, which is what a studio usually needs. A studio usually wants it to domestically make back its budget and even almost make a little bit of a profit domestically. We don't live in that world anymore. The general box office sales are now driven by international markets. So Disney, to me, is now kind of taking a different visual approach. And I think Bob Iger is really doing a great job with what he's doing at Disney because he's seeing long-term. He's not Michael Eisner. He's not, well, 2 years from now, we're not going to be in a good spot, so we need to do something right now. It's no. Yeah, 2 years, we might not be in a good spot, but we've got all this stuff planned out for the next 8 years, which are going to be coming out within the next 12. So we're going to be amazing by that point. We're going to have to rough it through these little parts, but we're going to come out on top down here. And this is why. And that's Bob Iger. So I'm really excited about where he is trying to take the company, especially after buying Marvel, after buying Lucasfilm. I mean, he is such a smart businessman. I'm definitely on board with this. If he sees that there's hope in Tron 3 with Joseph Kosinski coming back to write and direct, I am willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. He is also the one who is greenlighting these pirate sequels. So there's a little bit of hesitancy there. But I still think that this could work. The only downside is that if the filming schedule is true, and it's going to be starting filming in October, there's most likely going to be at least a 4 to 6 month shoot on this movie. It's a very visually intrusive film. There's going to be a hell of a lot of visual effects in this. The reports coming out saying that this could be a December 2016 release are far-fetched. They could not in 1 second get this movie done in time. At least at the quality level that they're going to want. So I don't see this movie coming out until at least summer 2017 at the earliest, which right now is starting to become an even more crowded season than we thought 2015 was a couple of years ago. So it all depends on when they can find a spot for this film, but I am definitely on board for a new Tron film. I'm just very hesitant about who they're going to get to do it. Badass Digest is reporting that Joseph Kosinski is back in the director's chair. Now, all of this being said, this is still a rumor. This has not been confirmed by Disney. It has not been confirmed by Joseph Kosinski. It has not been confirmed by Garrett Hedlund that he's returning to come back. Nobody's actually confirmed this. This is still a rumor. So, while I would like to see a continuation of this, I would like to see it in better hands. Maybe keep Joseph Kosinski on as director, bring a better writer in, and have a really good executive producer come in to oversee the project. Or even have Joseph Kosinski as an executive producer on this film, and have a new director and a new writing team come in to help develop it, and he can really guide the visual cue and the visual style of the film. That, to me, could work. Especially a collaborative effort between Kosinski and whoever the new director is. Really get them going back and forth saying, visually, this would look cool. And then he'll go in and say, well, the character should do this. And then get the actual director to come in and go, oh, yeah, that's a good idea. In his head, he's going, yeah, I'm not going to do that. So that's my opinion on it. I think that it's a great idea for them to continue on with this franchise. They just need to have it in better hands. That's my personal opinion. But what do you guys think about this? Do you think it's a good idea for them to revisit the Tron franchise? Would you like to see it in better hands? Or do you think Joseph Kosinski actually does a fairly decent job with what he's been given so far and would like to see him continue on? Let me know in the comment section below. As it stands, it's supposed to start filming in October of this year, which means we're likely to get over the next several months a lot more information about this film if it is indeed true. And if it is, I will definitely update you guys on here. Disney and Pixar have released a brand new trailer and what is likely the final trailer for their upcoming Inside Out. Now, ever since this movie was announced, I've been fascinated with this idea because this is the first Pixar movie since at least Toy Story 3 that I've actually been looking forward to. I mean, you look at Brave. I wasn't the target demographic for that movie, so it didn't really appeal to me. I didn't care for Cars, so I wasn't looking forward to Cars 2. Monsters University was the wrong way that I felt that they should have approached a Monsters Inc. sequel. I thought they should have continued on instead of going back because to me, I didn't care for the movie as much as I thought that I would, even when I did end up seeing it, but I wasn't even looking forward to it all that much. That being said, Inside Out to me is one of the most anticipated movies that I have of this year, just because of the concept. I mean, you have these 5 different emotions in everybody's head, and they're all vastly different. They're all very colorful, and I don't even mean just like visually. Like, they're all very kind of flamboyant, and they are all very specific about the type of character. Like, disgust is very, she's disgusted by everything. And then you have anger, who's just always very angry, and even when he gets really angry, he's got the flames that come at the top of his head. Then you have fear, who's literally terrified of everything, including his own shadow. You have joy, who's just always happy, and then sadness, who's basically like Eeyore. Everything about this movie just always screamed very unique and creative. And I know there's, what's it called, Herman's Head or something like that. It's very similar to this, but this to me has the Pixar stamp on it, which means we're getting so much heart. Like, I haven't felt anything for a Pixar movie in a long time. Yet watching this trailer, every time I've watched it, because I've watched it a couple of times, every time I start to get a little choked up. I mean, it pulls at the heartstrings. Everything about this movie is relatable. I mean, we all remember having those circumstances where we would all of a sudden just start feeling angry or sad or, upset about something, and we had no real reason to understand why. It's because we had these characters in our heads. So, I mean, just thinking about that, and this even gives an explanation as to why in the last trailer, I never even really picked up on this, but in the last trailer, we only actually see when the dinner situation is happening inside her head, we realistically only see disgust, anger, and fear. And I never put together that sadness and joy weren't in there. I thought that they were just out of the shot. But this actually gives a reason why. This trailer shows us what the storyline is. And so there's actually 3 storylines going on in this film. The first one is, the main overall storyline looks to be Riley, who is the actual little girl, her adjusting to a life in the new city and a new school and all this stuff. While also inside her head, there's 2 simultaneous storylines that are going on. So we have joy and sadness are actually, sucked up through this tube and get sent to a vast version of her mind, where they're in like the long-term memory banks, and it's basically like just this long encompassing maze or library of sorts where they need to try to find their way back. And then the other one is anger, disgust, and fear, all trying to keep some semblance of control when they're in the headquarters. So I like the fact that there's like 3 simultaneous storylines that are going on. We're most likely going to be focusing on the joy and sadness one, and then we're going to get they're going to cut to anger and disgust and fear, screwing things up all the time. And then also Riley really adjusting to life in a new city, and the emotional heartstrings that come along with that, and headaches that come along with that, trying to meet new friends or dealing with bullying. And I'm excited to see if there's going to be a bullying sequence in this movie, to see how anger deals with that. What does he do? Like that one shot where he's like, "Thank you, San Francisco, you've ruined pizza." Just all the little quips in this movie, they're all great. And, the Dream Productions looking just like Paramount Pictures, I thought that was really funny. You get the unicorn, who I really loved you in Dream Unicorn 7. And they're just like, just the very, very sort of elitist viewpoint on certain actors and actresses in Hollywood. I thought that was just really great. But the biggest thing to me, again, was the heart, the feeling, like the more than a feeling. Perfect song to use in the trailer. I mean, just everything about this just is going to be such an incredible movie-going experience. I mean, animated films, especially in the hands of Pixar, are able to elicit these types of emotions in both kids and adults. So, I mean, like, I already just can't wait for this film. I really can't. I want to know what your guys' opinions are. If you guys are as stoked about this movie as I am, because I think this movie is going to be the new Toy Story. I really do. There's a lot more that they could explore in these movies. Now, that being said, we don't know exactly what they're going to be exploring in this film, but with it being the emotions inside the head, this could be a companion piece to Toy Story, because we already know we're getting Toy Story 4. So they could do this movie when she's now moving into a new city. The next movie that comes out, she could be now going to high school and dealing with, puberty and all that kind of stuff and having to go through all these different hormone changes and what that's going to do with the emotions inside her head. Like, there's so many different storylines that they could do with this. So this could be Pixar's new franchise. And this is one that actually not requires, but it's not a stretch to the imagination to think that they could make this a franchise. Whereas you look at Monsters, Inc., Monsters, Inc. was set up like they could continue on that story, but yet they did a prequel. And so I hope they don't do that with Inside Out and, show us the parents when they were younger. Because, no, continue the storyline moving forward. And so I think that's where they could really go with it. But this, to me, looks like it's going to be the Pixar's best film in at least 5 years. So I'm really on board with it. I want to know what you guys think about this movie. Put a comment in the comment section below. The movie's going to be opening up on June 19th. And if we do get more information about this topic, I will definitely update you guys on here. Okay, I'm going to try as hard as I can to not get mad during this discussion, okay? So, it looks as though, this is still just a rumor. This is, again, not been confirmed by Sony or anybody involved in these projects. It looks as though both the Russo Brothers, as part of their Sony deal, are going to be working with Channing Tatum to work on a quote-unquote male-centric Ghostbusters spinoff. Now, that male-centric part has been refuted pretty well, at least according to, if this ends up being true, I believe it's Badass Digest who, again, talked about this one. It would be both Channing Tatum and Chris Pratt as the two leads in the movie, which, naturally, I mean, they're only the most in-demand actors right now for their age range. It would be those two, and they would be the focus of the movie, but it would not be male-centric. It would involve either female characters or, I would assume it would have to be other female characters, but we still don't know any story specifics or anything like that, outside of the fact that this is supposedly what Sony is trying to do. This is how desperate this company is to get a franchise, all right? They're planning on doing 4 Ghostbusters movies altogether. The first one being the all-female led one with Kristen Wiig and, Melissa McCarthy and Leslie Jones and Kate McKinnon. Then the next one would be this sort of male buddy cop one with Channing Tatum and Chris Pratt. Then the next one would see those two teams cross over in an Avengers-style movie, and those were their exact words. And then a potential prequel or period piece. What? I mean, no. Like, this is... there's not even any more straws to grab at. I mean, okay, I'm not going to get mad. This, to me, and also the icing on the cake, as it were. And this is what really started, this is why I want to talk about it. Apparently, the Ghostbusters brand will be a quote-unquote catch-all umbrella for the world of supernatural FX comedies. So, any comedy that's dealing with horror as well, and dealing with either, vampires, werewolves, goblins, gargoyles, demigods, ghosts as well, but it's anything involving paranormal or supernatural and also a comedy would be labeled as a Ghostbusters movie. What the hell? This is so stupid. Why are they trying to just capitalize on a name instead of creating something new? Instead of creating something new and actually getting a brand new fan base on board with this project and saying, this actually sounds cool, you're pissing off every fan of Ghostbusters because you're saying, well, here's our new Ghostbusters. Oh, by the way, it has nothing to do with ghostbusting. What? Like, that's like having an X-Men movie, or doing X-Men, and it being about a carpenter. Like, no. And his last name is Xavier. No, you don't do that. Like, Sony, what are you doing? First off, we're getting this 21 Jump Street, Men in Black crossover movie, which it's probably going to, if it does end up happening, it's probably going to be so stupid, but there's a little bit of hope as to how it could maybe work. And that at least would not be just utilizing the titles. They would actually be featuring the characters and the storylines and situations from those films. They've already come out and said Ghostbusters will be a catch-all umbrella for the world of supernatural effects comedies, which means it's not going to be Ghostbusters. We're not going to have the proton packs. There's not going to be the what the hell was the name of the car? It's not going to be Ghostbusters. Why call it Ghostbusters at that point? I don't get this. I mean, that, and on top of that, having a period piece, How? Like, what? What? No. How are you going to do that? How are you going to have, unless in the Ghostbusters movie that we have coming out with Kristen Wiig, unless in there that it is explained that like 100 years ago or 80 years ago or whatever the case was, that there was a previous group who did this, and that's what kind of inspired them to go and do all this stuff. If they explain that in the Kristen Wiig movie, then it's not out of the realm of possibility to think about a period film. But in the same regard, how interesting is that going to be? I mean, one of the cool things about Ghostbusters is the cool gadgetry that they have. You can't have that in a period piece unless you're dealing with time travel. And there is no reason whatsoever to include time travel in a Ghostbusters movie, let alone to bring them back in time with dealing with time travel, which means they're from the present. There's no reason to do it. I mean, this to me is so stupid. Like, why are they... Okay. I can see the Russo brothers. I don't see them directing this. If it ends up being true, I do not see them directing, because I can't see them being this dumb about coming onto a franchise and then applying a name to it. It'll essentially be like World War Z. World War Z, when that came out, that had pretty much nothing except for the title to be relating to its source material. That's kind of the same thing here, except you're dealing with a much more known brand. You don't do that. You're going to piss off so many people, and they're going to want to not see this. Now, I mean, that being said, the trailers could come out and be really cool, and they'll draw a lot more people back to see the movie. But if they're planning a franchise, we don't even know how the first movie is going to be responded to. Already it's lukewarm. So why are they now saying, oh, okay, well, because a lot of people actually aren't really all that excited about this one, we're going to create 2 or 3 more. What? Like, that is the most backwards logic I've ever heard. And now, depending on when this actually started to work itself out and when it all started to be developed, I'm wondering if this is another brainchild of Tom Rothman. I mean, that guy is just a wet bag of rocks. I mean, he is going to ruin these franchises. Because he looks at, it's a name brand. People will go to a name brand. We got to do that. We can do whatever we want to the content, but they'll like the name. So we'll get the name out there, and we'll get people to come and see it. But it won't have anything to do with that, because you know why? Because that'll cost too much money. It'll be too much work to make it look like that. So we're just going to do our own simple thing. We're going to call it this. I hate that guy. But I can see them, if this ends up being true, I could see them executive producing this movie. I can't see them directing it, because in all likelihood, why would they pass up? Posit this. Why would they pass up directing Avengers Infinity War if they're in fact offered the job? Why would they pass that up to go and do Ghostbusters? Why? Why would you do that? Almost certain failure, 100% certain success, and a little bit more anonymity. You'll be able to do more. You'll be able to be given a little bit of freedom. You're going to have Ivan Reitman and Dan Aykroyd breathing down your throats with these franchises, because they're now, what's it called, Ghostverse or Ghost World or something along those. I can't remember, Spook World, or I can't remember exactly what they're calling their umbrella company, but they're overseeing these movies. Ivan Reitman, he hasn't done anything really that great in the last 10 to 15 years. Dan Aykroyd, he's from my hometown. He's from Kingston, Ontario, and I don't even like the guy. He hasn't, to me, done anything of note since the 90s. So, I mean, he's too far removed for his word and his enthusiasm to be enough to get me on board with this. So I don't know, especially if they're just overseeing it. Dan Aykroyd, I'm not excited about. I just don't want another Ghostbusters movie. To me, it was the epitome of a product of its time, especially now if the fact that they're not even really doing a remake of it, they're just taking that name and doing whatever the hell they want with it. I am not on board with this. I don't believe for a second that Chris Pratt would be involved in this, outside of the fact that he and Channing Tatum are really good friends, and supposedly that's where this idea came from, was about how their camaraderie between one another in real life is actually, people actually see it, and so they figured, well, this would work really well on paper. Again, pretty sure that was a brainchild of Tom Rothman. So the other part of this that is making me think that there might actually be some credence to this, and I really don't want there to be. There was a leaked Sony roadmap that came out back in December with the whole hacking and all that kind of stuff. There was a roadmap of what their upcoming films were for 2016 and 2017. On that list was 2 separate Ghostbusters projects. Now, they did have in parentheses When it said Ghostbusters in the 2016 section, it said Ghostbusters, and then in parentheses it says or 2017. And then in the 2017 section, you see Ghostbusters again. It was posited at that point that they were actually developing 2 simultaneous movies. One was a female-led, one was a male-led, and then they were going to do those, and then they were going to team them up. I still hope that that doesn't happen because I think this is a dead franchise. I really don't know where they could go with it. The information we've been getting from Paul Feig's version of Ghostbusters has me a little bit more... I like some of the ideas that they have. Whether or not the execution is done properly is another story. My biggest issue has always been the fact that Paul Feig never envisioned anybody except for women in these roles, which again to me is pigeonholing it. That means that, okay, well, you got to write these characters, you got to stay away from stereotypes, which he is not necessarily known to do. He actually likes playing them up, especially with Melissa McCarthy. And that's why I'm not excited for it, because to me it's a retread of something we've already seen. And Ghostbusters, to me, if they were to do a reboot, there are so many ways you could go about it without playing up stereotypes, especially in the age that we live in now. The direction that they're going, to me, is one of the right directions. But again, we are still so much in the dark. And with Melissa McCarthy being on board in the character description that she's most likely playing, I'm not excited about her being involved in it, but everybody else, especially Kate McKinnon and Leslie Jones, I'm really excited for them because I think they're amazingly talented actresses and very talented comedians. So there's a little tiny speck of hope that I have. But not for this new Channing Tatum, Chris Pratt one. I like the stars. I like the 2 actors. And both of them together I think could play off one another really well. But not in this project. Not in this weird ghost-busting, non-ghost universe. Because that's essentially what they've said. It would not be realistically about Ghostbusters. It would be about, them fighting gods or them fighting... demons, or them fighting like supernatural creatures like werewolves or gargoyles or vampires or even they could go even further and go mummies and Frankenstein. They could even try to bring in the Universal movies. I mean, I have no idea where they're going to go with this. I'm just scared with the creative team that's above this right now. With the Russo brothers coming in, I think this is a bad move for them. Tatum doesn't stretch my imagination that he would want to be involved in this, but still, I'm not on board with this. If we are to be believed that a 2017 release is going to be confirmed for this movie, that means that the film is likely to start shooting sometime next year. So we've got a ways to wait before this actually comes to fruition. We still don't know if it will. I hope it doesn't. I hope that it really doesn't, because this to me is a terrible idea. But what do you guys think? Do you think this is a smart decision? Do you agree with me? Do you not think that it's a great idea? God, I cannot get excited for this movie. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, because as you saw with the Paul Feig version, my opinion is not set in stone. If new information comes out that I can picture it differently, then I'm willing to change my opinion. I'm not going to be spiteful and say that because I don't like it when it was first announced, I'm never going to like it again. Well, no. I mean, if it comes out and there's a lot of good information, there's a good cast that comes on board, the script comes in and is great, and it ends up working out, then it might be a fun movie. I personally don't like it being called Ghostbusters, and I don't think it should be, but let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, because I would love to hear a different opinion than mine that is actually somewhat able to make me see the other side of this. I would really love that. So put a comment in the comment section, and if we do get more information about this topic, I will definitely update you guys on here. Well, that'll about do it for us here on Coming Soon Movie News with Niklsun. Thank you so much for watching. You guys have been a great audience. Go ahead and click that subscribe button there in the bottom corner. You can get updates whenever we post a new video. You can also follow me on Twitter at Niklsun, Niklsun, for all of your movie updates. And also give us a like on our Facebook page at facebook.com/movie news with Niklsun. If you ever have a topic or question you'd like to have talked about on the show, go ahead and put a comment in the comment section, or you can email us at movienewswithniklsun, Niklsun, @gmail.com. And on every Friday episode, we'll try to get to as many as we can. But until next time, you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.